Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Wednesday in the Riv after a
Clown.
dazzling exhibition of fiscal restraint at the city council meeting last night. What a mess. This city is just in trouble. I mean, we cannot. They underfunded things. They and then when they talked about how they're going to fund them, everything they said was BS. It's just incredible. I mean, I it defies human comprehension. That's the things that these people are clueless, so clueless. It's crazy. I mean, hard to believe, but they do. So they actually said they were going to kind of hold off on fire and police contracts and so they could save some money by not settling them until later, which is, by the way, an unfair labor practice. Just for the record, they just went on TV. If I was the firefighter union or police union, I would take that video and immediately, when I walked into the bargaining table, dump it on the table and say, "You better bargain in good faith because I don't have to wait for you to jerk me around for a year and a half to prove that you're bargaining in bad faith. You've already gone on television and said you're going to do it." So, I mean, their idiocy is just incredible. They just say things like, because they have no clue about what their legal responsibility is. It's like Paul when he sent the letter to the city council after they lost an arbitration. He didn't realize it was illegal because they all walk around with their head up their butt and get jobs because they're politically connected. They don't have to know anything. Coogan doesn't know what the collective bargaining laws say. So they're already not going to bargain. They already said they're not going to bargain in good faith. They're going to intentionally delay settling their contract. So,
and the worst part about it is when they're talking about these numbers last night. I mean, the only people that were asking any questions about the budget were Sean Tadim and Michelle Dion. The rest of the city councils were blowing smoke up the superintendent's ass. They had nothing valid to say about the budget, which is a shame. Now, certain departments were underfunded. And you know why? Well, we're going to have retirements. And we'll use the salaries from those retirements to fund the salaries that are in the department.
Which is ridiculous, okay? Because number one, that, again, is telling you they're going to intentionally not fill jobs.
That's right.
To generate. We know they've done that for years, but now they just come out and say, "Look, we're just not going to. And when we do fill them, it's going to save us." Well, look, those people are still going to get paid, and they're still going to get health care. Yeah, you're going to save a few dollars. Those people will not get as much vacation time. They won't get the same longevity benefits. They won't get any at all, actually, until they get at least, I don't know what the new contracts say now, 5 years on the job, 10 years on the job. But they won't get some of the benefits you get that you accrue through seniority. But they're not going to save like billions of dollars because a few people. And not only that, what kind of absurd fiscal policy depends on people retiring? Every one of those people would have to be at mandatory retirement age this coming year, in the next 3 years, because you can't force people to retire. You can't just say we want you to retire so we can save money. If the guy says, screw you, I'm staying on a job. And I hate to tell them this, but mandatory retirement for fire and police is 65. So everybody on the fire and police department can decide to stay. They're going to stay on a job till they're 65. Group 4 retirement, they could retire at 55 with the right amount, with the correct amount of years. The minimum age to retire with your full retirement benefit is 55 with 32. A 2.5 factor, which is then reduced based on if you're short age or time. But the reality is, I mean, this is insane. That's not fiscal response. And the council is listening to this shit, and they're not saying anything. I mean, this is the most fiduciarily irresponsible and in administration, and they don't care. They don't care. They say that stuff in front of a camera. Oh, we're not going to settle a contract intentionally. I mean, it is nuts. It is nuts. Well, you're right, Nelson. We've said this for decades. We've been saying this forever. Look, they've underfunded everything because what they're going to do is they just want to get through the first year, get reelected, get through the first year, and then they're going to jack up everything, say they're broke, say that they're going to have to cut people if they don't increase, if we don't get a debt override. They're going to lay off fire. They're going to lay off police. We haven't settled a police contract and a fire contract yet because we gave everybody else a contract. And now if we settle with them, we're going to be bankrupt. And so everybody's going to have to pay extra. You're going to have to get a debt override. We're going to have to waive Proposition 2.5, bend over, and get screwed again. I mean, this is mind-boggling. And I still have that letter.
Personally, if we get into that position where the administration, especially if it's this administration, will not enter into a contract with the police or fire because they're going to be bankrupt, you know what my response to Paul would be? F you. You set up the budget. You set up the mess. You gave out the outrageous pay raises. Suck it up. Give them your paycheck. I'm tired of this. Okay? Wouldn't it be wonderful to see our police and our firefighters all over the streets not working because Paul can't do his job? Because he doesn't do it. He has other people doing this work. He has no idea what's in his budget. As long as the numbers work, he doesn't care. Because remember, he's not a numbers man.
And I heard that there are a lot of callers to local We Suck at Radio complaining about the CFO not having any numbers, not having fundamentally a clue. But then again, this is what they always do. I mean, this is fiscal irresponsible. Spend. It's just like Biden did. Just keep spending, print, but we can't print money. See, the federal government can go trillions and trillions of dollars in debt, and they just keep the printing presses running. But, you know, there is a law against us deficit spending. We're not supposed to deficit spend. That's what this budget is. We're deficit spending. You cannot underfund the budget. I texted.
How about $6 million shortfall for the health fund? $6 million shortfall for the health fund.
Look, that's another misrepresentation of fact. It's not a $6 million shortfall. It's a $6 million increase in their budget that they can't handle because they never did anything with their money like we did with our trust fund.
Right.
And the CFO has said that. And listen, for the record, I texted a couple of counselors yesterday during the meeting. to remind them again for the 780th time. Every one of those contracts by law, and the law is Chapter 150E, the collective bargaining law, Section 7, sub B, which clearly states, and I'll get it, I think it might be over there. It says that when a contract within 30 days of the execution of a collective bargaining agreement, that instrument must be presented to the appropriate funding body, which in our case is the city council, for appropriation, and all items in that budget must be funded. Not funded by, do you remember when Bridget said the last go around with contracts, she said, oh, we don't have the money to do it, but we're looking at some investments. Do we have those investments? No. The answer is no. So the contract that they stuck before that council for the police the last time is still not funded. Because what are the investments that Bridget Allman, the former CFO, said they were looking at that they've got now that funded this contract that we're in now? Nothing. Nada. I'm telling you, if they ever bring a forensic audit in there, they're all going to jail. And the council should go with them because they are a sworn fiduciary of the city. They are the fiduciaries of the city. They are the financial body. They appropriate money. This is crazy. This is to watch that circus down there. And then all they're worried about, the school committee isn't worried apparently, except for maybe Colin and Kevin, about the lack of performance of the school department. Just keep throwing money at them. Just keep giving everybody pay raises, and we'll stay at the bottom of the barrel with no improvement at all in education. And let's not hold anybody accountable. Mold again in the school. Whatever happened to that sexual harassment? It said that he could be prosecuted. The perpetrator could have been prosecuted under another, didn't say he was innocent, but now they're hoping everybody forgot. But we haven't forgotten.
We never forget. That's the problem.
Good. I'm glad you did. Yep. I got CJ Tech. I got a copy of it also. We are going to be going over that probably a little bit on Friday's show, but I mean, tonight they don't have, they've got some smaller departments, but tomorrow is going to be the real circus. I believe they're doing public safety tomorrow. And it's ironic because the collective bargaining law clearly states that contracts have to be funded. Yeah, not with speculation.
Right.
If you went to a bank and said what they say, you would never get a loan. You would never get a house. You would never get a mortgage. You wouldn't get shit. You wouldn't get anything. If you went to a bank and sat in a bank and you said, well, I want to get a loan, and they said, well, how are you going to pay the loan back? Well, I might hit a scratch ticket. Well, you're not getting a loan. Well, I'm looking at investments. You know what they're going to say? Let's see the investment portfolio you're looking at. Let's see what their return is. Let's see how solid this investment is. Let's look at your financial portfolio. Do you have the money? No. The CFO told you this city has, and when Paul first took over, I sent him a letter and the entire transition team that they mishandled healthcare money. 6 years later, the new CFO is going in front of the city council and telling you what? They're mishandling
the money,
healthcare money. These people are getting pay raises. They're being employed. They haven't been fired. Coogan gets reelected. What in the hell is going on?
Well, the interesting thing, it was disgusting me, is that the school department underfunded their health plan by $1 million. And they say they have to underfund it because they can't predict what it's going to cost because of weight loss medications. Now, when Chip comes back, he can explain this. They have the health plan with the weight loss medications in place for a year. That doesn't mean it's going to continue past a year. I don't know what they're going to plan on doing. I know that Medicare has already removed all the weight loss medications after they had put them on. Now they've taken them all off. So they don't care. But obviously, the city side of government, i.e. the healthcare fund and the healthcare portfolio, figured out what they needed to do because of the weight loss drugs.
Yes. Yes.
And that's important. But for the school department to turn around and say, well, we can't figure it out, so we're going to schedule it for $1 million less. And then the city side scheduled it for $6 million less.
Yeah, just so people will, because we talk about this stuff, and I know people will go, well, they're talking and talking, but we're not like the city council. We don't accept bullshit. Okay, just to show everybody, this is the Public Employee Collective Bargaining Law. And as I said before, to show I got a fairly good memory, Section 7, and I'm reading verbatim from the law. Any collective bargaining agreement reached between the employer and the exclusive representative shall not exceed a term of 3 years. The agreement shall be reduced to writing, executed by the parties, and a copy of such agreement shall be filed with the Commission with the House and Senate. The employer, other than the Board of Regents of Higher Education and the Chief Administrator, and it goes on to say, shall submit, in this case, the mayor, shall submit to the appropriate legislative body, which I said before, within 30 days after the date on which the agreement is executed by the parties, a request for an appropriation necessary to fund the cost of items therein. Period. You got to fund it. You can't say, we're figuring out where we're going to get the money. They have not voted a fully funded contract in its city in a decade, at least. And they wonder why we're on the verge of bankruptcy, why we're on the verge of receivership. These people are nuts. And healthcare, just so you know, healthcare is covered by Chapter 32B, Section 8A for the employees about our trust fund. The city's is 3A, but they're not required to keep the money. They should. That's why they're broke. And I wrote that letter to Paul when in his first term, when he made the fatal mistake of appointing me to the transition team and put me on a financial subcommittee. And they never had a meeting after I wrote that letter to them. And I explained what a bunch of crap our budget is. And that's exactly what the letter was about. These people are nuts. Yeah, well.
And they give the bus companies 5% a year, no matter what, in the 5-year contract that the city council gave them. And they're complaining about the cost of transportation, but they're giving transportation raises.
Yeah, no, you're right, Chris. You're right, Chris. You know what's going to happen? They're going to be looking for debt overrides again. After he gets elected, we're going to be getting tax increases. They're going to be looking for debt overrides because this. And who's at fault? The city council. The mayor can only propose. The city council disposes. If they agree
which they do because they've got bobbleheads.
that this contract is funded and it isn't, they're liable. They are being malfeasant. The city council is being malfeasant. As a public official, they are a fiduciary. And I've got a ton of case law that says that a public fiduciary has a greater burden than a private fiduciary. And all fiduciaries have a burden to their clients. But because public fiduciaries are responsible to the taxpayers, they have a greater burden, and it says in the case law that they have to examine the numbers with, quote, this is a case that I have, with a critical eye. It also says in that same finding that they have to look deeper than just the numbers that they get. They have to do their homework. They listen to this crap, and you got two people asking questions, and the other yo-yos are talking about, let's the school committee. That's on a school committee.
Well, you know,
they
Mike
should all be, except for Kevin and Colin, they should all be gone.
Yeah, Mike Sylvia, the editor and publisher of Florida Reporter, made it clear that he was in the meeting last night and that there was no one from the public there in opposition or in support of the budget. And I tried to make an excuse, as weak as it was that, well, Joe Camara only gives him 15 minutes to hear all of that. So you know what's going to happen is nobody's going to want to show up. No, that's not the problem. The problem is the average person cannot understand this budget. They can't. That's why you have 7 nitwits or 6 nitwits on the city council which don't ask any questions. They just turn around and say, Superintendent Curley, I remember when you were a student and I was a teacher. I remember that. And it's so nice to be working with you again. Who cares, Brad? Blow it out your ass.
Didn't Joe Camara not know what 50% of 150 was?
Well, that was another thing.
You're going to expect this city council that can't figure out what 50% of a number is going to look at. The Fall River Reporter can complain about nobody. It doesn't matter. You're shoveling shit against the tide.
That's
okay?
right.
What you got to do is not show up at the city council meeting. Show up at the polls. Elect people who are going to do something about this. Elect city councilors who are going to stand up and reject the budget. This budget is not funded.
But there's a problem with that. There's a problem with that. Alan Rumsey said you can't reject the budget as a whole. You have to do it individually, line by line.
Well, then, if that's the way Alan Rumsey says it, go to court and prove him wrong.
But then I think when they do it line by
just
line,
reject everything.
Alan turned around and said, well, there are legal things you have to pass. You don't get a choice. Well, if there are things that have to be passed, you don't get a choice. Why the hell are they in the budget? I've always known the budget as reduce, reject, or approve. That's it.
That's what the law says.
The last time they rejected a budget, I believe it was Michelle, and she got the votes together. Alan Rumsey said, you can't reject the budget. That's not an action. Her name is Shithead.
Come on, CJ. Wait a minute. Oh, God, we keep flipping it. Well, you know what you can do? Remember what the law says, as CJ said. You can reduce the budget. Just give them less money than they asked for. And then when they say we can't run the city, that's on him.
That's your fault. And here's my thing, Chris. You're right. Okay? That's what they do with that. It's too clouded. Okay? Because if Rumsey wants it so that you can't reject the budget, you can't reject the budget. If you reduce every line item in the budget to $1 and then approve that, they'll come back with a legal reason why you can't do that. Either you've approved the contract, you did this, you did that.
But they can't. They don't have any legal standing. See, this is the problem. Alan Rumsey goes down there, and they all look at him like he's a court, like he's a judge making a decision. He's just a political hack giving a political opinion for a political mayor. And what he's saying is bullshit. He doesn't know anything about collective bargaining. Okay? You got to fund that contract. That contract is illegal. Why doesn't Rumsey know that? Because he doesn't care.
He's collecting his paycheck and he's getting the hell out of here. And this is where he's going to claim his retirement from. That's what they all do.
You're so pathetic. And remember, he graduated from Brown. He couldn't keep a job in the DA's office. He had to resign. And now he's got this job. He can't make a real job. He can't make a living being a real lawyer. So he's over here.
We can't impeach, Andrew. We recall. That's right. That's Fall Rivers.
We've done it once, but listen, we've got an election in November. And I don't care if they got a doorknob running, Coogan can't get in again. I mean, this is the end of it. I mean, we will be in receivership. This budget, underfunded, illegal, and every councilor that votes for this budget will be fiduciarily liable. Yeah, unfortunately, we do have to suffer. But that we're still operating with, we will still have to operate.
Actually, we're going to suffer until January unless we have Paul reelected, in which case we're suffering for another 2 years. So get your friends out to vote and vote for anyone. Vote for a doorknob. Vote for Mickey Mouse. Vote for a squirrel. I don't care. Vote for anyone but Paul.
Listen, we got Michelle over there asking.
City councilor.
We got Michelle there asking questions. We got Kadeem bringing up numbers. And it's ironic. You got a CFO that's supposed to know what she has no numbers. And everybody that goes up there, it's a joke. It's a joke. I mean, I have not heard. How many times have we said on this show, CJ, that I cannot understand why a city councilor could sit in that chair and allow someone who's being paid to provide them with information about the fiscal condition of the city, go down there and say, I don't have those numbers right now. You know what they should say? Well, get out of your chair, go get the numbers, and don't come back or leave, and don't come back till you have the numbers. That's your damn job.
That's right.
You can't be down there saying, I think we hope somebody retires. We're going to hang a contract up. That probably, I talked to a friend of mine who's a very, very he's the best labor attorney in the state of Massachusetts. A longtime friend of mine. When I told him what happened at that council meeting, you know what his response was? Only in Fall River could they get away with that. Only in Fall River can they do what they do this. Why? Because we let them do it.
That's right.
We let them do it because nobody 40,000 people or more sat on their ass that are registered voters and didn't vote. I don't care who runs. You got to throw as many people as you can out. And if not, people have got to run and people have got to get engaged in the city. I mean, that's it.
You know what, Andrew? They don't have a place to complain that it's affecting their personal jobs. That is their personal job. And if you can't do it, quit. I'll hold the door open. Just don't let it hit you on the way out.
Who's not being paid enough? The council?
No, people say,
oh. Well, listen.
It's their job until they cry.
Oh, yeah. Well, listen.
They're not being paid enough.
That's not. They're not crying. What they're doing is they're promoting their propaganda. Listen, I told you the story a long time ago, and I've told it numerous times. When I negotiated a contract, one of the things I said was the trash pickers in San Francisco at the time were making more than any other city employee in the city of Fall River. Trash pickers. And everybody else was paid higher than them. Why? Because it was San Francisco. And you've been there, I've been there. You know how expensive San Francisco was to live. You cannot bargain to get the pay rate, the wages that they get in Newton in Fall River. I went to the Joint Labor Management Commission twice. The first thing you have to do when you get there is prove the city's ability to pay. This city does not have the ability to pay. You have to get a wage that's in line with cities. We have a universe of 10 cities, including Fall River, 9 others that are close to the size. You have to try to get in line with people who have, if this city, the cost of living is cheaper. Well, it was until Coogan got in. Now, see, this is the con they use to charge you Nantucket rent. Paul even said it. We got Nantucket rent. Well, we want to get Nantucket pays, but we can't afford it. Because what's the average income in Nantucket? You bozos still haven't figured out on a council that, according to the United States Census Bureau, the median per capita income in this city is only $31,998. You expect these people to pay rents and taxes like people who were making $100,000 per capita? That's not realistic. But see, the rich don't care. This is the Democratic con. They tell you we're the poor man's party, and then they take all your money away and you're living in the street. That's why all these blue states are loaded with homeless people. And people can't, they're destroying all these communities. They're making everything into Detroit. I mean, everything they say makes no sense when you look beyond the bullshit. You know, you got to put your bullshit glasses on and filter through the bullshit, because everything they say is a con. Oh, we got to pay these people like they get paid in Boston. Well, you want to get paid like you get paid in Boston, go work in Boston. There's a residency requirement in Boston. You know how much an apartment costs in Boston? Costs you like $3,000 a month or $4,000 a month for a 1-bedroom up there. Boston's one of the highest places to live in the country, in the United States. It's apples and oranges. It's capitalism. There's a saying in capitalism: you can only charge what the market will bear. Well, the people of Fall River can't bear this anymore. I pay more for my taxes than I do for my mortgage. That's how bad it is in Fall River. And how do people with a per capita income of $31,000 and the average household income is $53 and change? How do you survive? You can't qualify for market rate housing because you don't make enough, because it's an area. And we went over it. Well, Westport's income is $81,000, ours is $53,000, Somerset's 80 something. That everybody else here makes nearly double what we make as an income, but they want us to pay the same rates that these people who make this money do. It can't happen. What happens is what's happening in Fall River. People can't afford their rent. They can't afford anything. We see homelessness on the rise. We see people being in all kinds of financial trouble. And this is what's happening to the average person in Fall River. Coogan doesn't care. If Coogan gets elected for a fourth term, he will have made nearly $1 million in salary. And he's got a pretty hefty school pension that he's collecting right now.
Yeah.
He could put that all in the bank. As a matter of fact, he could put it in a bank where all his friends are doing all the investments for him.
That's
and
right.
He could be a multimillionaire. Now, here's a guy that never got a job on merit in his life, walking around with his hands in his pockets for 30 years in a school department, high-fiving students, an educator, and lifelong educator as our mayor. And he sits there with his mouth shut when we're in the bottom 10% in the state. You think he gives
Yay, Fall River.
You think he gives a shit about education? All he gives a shit about is giving everybody he knows and 3/4 of his family jobs.
That's
somewhere.
it. That's it.
That's all they care about. They're rich. They don't care. It's like the movie stars telling you, shut up and let them ruin the country because it doesn't bother me. And that's what they do. This is crazy. They don't care. How much longer his term ends?
It's a countdown clock. It's great. Couple of things. I haven't been ignoring you, El Grande Americano. Chip Chess has been going on, and I've let him. I don't know what's going on with Fall River Government Television. I know that last night's city council meeting still is not available anywhere. It might be available on YouTube by now. The other thing is, no, we do agree that the entire school committee should be replaced. And that does include W.C. Fields, your favorite friend. But one of the things I think we need to realize is that...
I don't agree with that.
What do you mean?
The entire school committee. Colin Dyer should not be replaced.
No, Colin and Kevin, yeah, you're right. Colin and Kevin, we think should stay there. But the rest of them, they need to go. If we could get rid of the chairman, that would be even better.
Did you put this one up?
Yeah, we
As
know.
an aside to that, when is he getting out of jail?
2 years, I think.
Pretty close.
You would know.
Huh?
I just said Patrick. You would know.
Yeah, Patrick. Yeah. But listen, nothing in this city goes according to law. As I said, my friend, the labor attorney, was always amazed when he came to Fall River. And he said, only in Fall River could they run a city like this. And it's not a mistake that we're in the mess we're in. This is the result of ineffective, incompetent, and inane government. These people don't care that they spend money they don't have because they're all going to be gone. Remember, Paul lived in Somerset. He only came back to make money. He's a carpetbagger. He's going to take his little carpet bag when he's done and run away from Fall River. He's going to sell his little Bobby townhouse. What guy's making nearly $1 million in salary, got a big fat pension, and lives in a little tiny house that's like this big? You know, you'd think he'd at least, like live near his friends up in the Highlands. But he lives close, though. He lives close. But that you know what that is? That's an address, so he can say he's got a city residence. He bailed out of Fall River like there was lightning coming out of his ass when he retired.
Next year, July 11th, next year.
Ooh. Ooh. Wow. Leave it to Patrick Good work, Patrick.
Patrick gets all that information no matter what.
I don't know.
No, you're right, Bruno. He did have the city going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he was going in the wrong direction personally.
That's right.
But you know,
I'm just surprised more of his supporters didn't go to jail with him.
Sean Kadim actually said that in a council chamber to Coogan. He said that Jaisal Correa was a much better mayor and administrator than you are. And you know the sad part about it was I think in Paul's first term. Am I correct with that?
Right.
And he's gotten worse. So Kadim better resurrect that and tell him you were a far worse mayor than Jaisal in your first term, and now you have wrested the title without a doubt. You are the undisputed worst mayor in history of this city. Well, who knows? Stranger things have happened. If stranger things have happened, Buddy Cianci came back and turned Providence around. And, you know, if he did his time and he's eligible, who knows? Like I said, Buddy Cianci was convicted. He got reelected and actually did an amazing job in Providence. See, kind of Buddy Cianci was kind of like Jaisal's kind of a little younger, a little less dynamic version of Buddy Cianci. Buddy was a great mayor for the people of Providence. People don't know that. He was really engaged with the people of Providence. He really cared about them, and he took care of them. He was great for the unions. That's why he always got elected. And he created the Renaissance in Providence because we got a legal opinion from Patrick. Yeah, he will be legally
eligible to run.
He will be eligible to run. But like I said, Cianci was kind of like Jaisal. He was good with the people. And he was good for the city of Providence. Like I said, he's the guy that brought Providence back. He was the Renaissance man. And yeah, granted, he did some shady things personally, but the people of the city loved him because he took care of the people. Paul Coogan is like the anti-Buddy Cianci, the anti-Jaisal Correa. You know, I was on a healthcare board. We had issues with healthcare all the time, and I actually was in the room with Jaisal talking about issues. And Jaisal always tried to do what we thought was best for the people, for our people in our healthcare system. He did care about trying to get the people of Fall River a better life. And and you can't change history. Coogan is the antithesis of that. Coogan doesn't give a damn. Coogan says, shut up, you can't talk. You live in public housing. You don't own a house, shut up. Go, if you don't agree with me, go jump in the Taunton River. You don't have a bullet. I don't have a bullet hole in my house. Shut up. I don't care if you got a bullet hole in your house. Paul does not give he doesn't give a rat's ass.
Shut up. You live in public housing. You don't have a right.
That's right. Paul doesn't give a rat's ass about the average person in Fall River. The only thing he cares about is what he said in his first term. My banker friends, my lawyer friends, my investor friends, and all my rich friends, my politician friends. So they live in a different world. Well, it'll be very interesting to see, but I just hope that when Jaisal is released, I wish him all the best. He paid his dues. He served his time. And I wish him well when he gets out. We'll see what happens with him politically, but I wish him well as an individual because, as like you said, if somebody, if you know the old saying, if you do the crime, you got to do the time. So he did the time, and now he's coming out, and hopefully he'll have a good life. But I don't know about the city. Like I said at the last show, I think this city is on the verge of death. We are on a resuscitator now. One more term of Paul Coogan, and it'll be like electing Dr. Kevorkian.
That's for sure. That's for sure. It doesn't get any better. There are a couple of things. Yeah, he did. You're right. He did predict the chaos unfolding right now. The sad part about all of this. Oh, and Patrick, in response to your request, before I forget, it's right here. Yes, Paul is quote unquote interviewing people for city administrator. Yeah. But from what we've culled from our sources, the person's already chosen. That one's playing the rusty trombone to get the job. And Paul made sure that he got himself another political kiss ass to take care of him, which we expected. The question is, will this person have any qualifications to hold this job? Because we know Seth Atkins had no qualifications to hold the job. Okay.
He also had no moral compass or ethics, and he proved
That's right. That's why he quit. Tim McCoy again. I hope not. I think Tim McCoy has a cushy job where he sleeps at the housing authority. So
you still got that picture of him asleep? I love that one.
I believe I do. Hold on.
There's a I can see there's a great candidate for city administrator.
There you go.
We haven't had a good city administrator since, I will say, what I would say a good city administrator was the last one was Connors. First one, Alan Sylvia, was phenomenal with numbers, but Jim Smith was okay. But then all those city administrators had qualifications. But what do we get back to? Ineffective government, lack of accountability. The city council will hire whoever he wants them to hire, will pay them whatever salary he wants them to pay them, and let them be incompetent at their job, just like they let Bridget Allman be incompetent. Just like they let them all be incompetent.
Well, Sean Kadim was okay, Patrick, but I wouldn't say he was the best.
Listen, Sean Kadim knew nothing as our city administrator. He did his OJT in Fall River because he came from Raytheon.
That's right.
He came from Raytheon. He didn't have a freaking clue, Patrick, about public sector law. Okay, I remember my history, and I got a really good memory. He was doing OJT here, and as soon as he learned how to do the job, he beat it.
Well, there's no question about him being better than Tim McCoy.
Listen, he did a,
I've heard multiple things, George. I've heard yes, I've heard no. If there's one, it's going to be either at 6 or 7. That's the best I can do. I've looked on the city website. They have no information. As usual, the city keeps us well informed.
Look, Kadim tried to be the city administrator. He learned the job. I mean, to be fair to him, he didn't have the background. He had to learn the job. So we were actually paying him to get enough experience at that job to go to greener pastures, which he
And
did.
he did. And
So
he did.
look, I'm not saying he was totally ineffective, but he really wasn't he wasn't somebody like an Alan Sylvia or a Bob Connors who had, Connors had a wealth of experience with labor. He was a labor negotiator. Then he became a negotiator for the city of New York management. So he had labor and management skills. Good resume, great negotiator.
Thank you, Denise. The meeting is at 6. Okay, George, the meeting's at 6.
And
thank you again, Denise.
But we can't, they're going to hire another bozo because, there's an old Castilian saying, tell me who you walk with and I'll tell you who you are. Paul Coogan was an incompetent his entire career as an educator, and he walks with other people like him. He likes to surround himself with people that are like him. We don't get the best and the brightest with the Coogan administration.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, we've beat the crap out of this for now. I want to thank you all for watching. Just different clowns, you're right. I want to thank you all for watching, and remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. And George, I'm going to give you the closing line here. What a joke. This city is beep. That's what happens when there's no city administrator, no CFO, and a mayor who probably can't balance his own checkbook. And Paul said he's no good with numbers. He's already said it. He's no good with numbers. So, once again, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on Friday. Have a great day.
Beep.